Welcome, everybody, to another random walk down Mill Street. Tonight's topic is a short one. Really, I just want to show you a couple pictures, so I'll have to dress it up a little bit. But the title of tonight's topic is Don't Push My Buttons, and I'm going to be talking about some buttons in Shearith, Israel. And the topic choice is related to the time of year we are in, because tomorrow night is Lag Omer. We say Friday is Lag Omer, and that is the anniversary of the consecration of our beautiful synagogue building here on 70th Street. And so I wanted to talk about the 70th Street Synagogue, but I've done so in the past. I've talked about different aspects of the synagogue in the past, and so I wanted to choose something that was short and sweet. Um, so we'll get right into it. Let me share my screen here. And just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Excellent. Don't push my buttons. Random walk down Mill Street, May 14th, 2025. Okay, so on May 20th, 1897, our beautiful synagogue was consecrated. This is a picture I found online. Unfortunately, it has some kind of, I didn't notice it till too late. It has some kind of watermark in here. But this is before there was a subway. That's why I chose this picture because it's nice. It's there was no subway station here. The parsonage was only one or two stories high. Now there's an extra level on top of it. And so this is an old picture from around 1899 of the synagogue. One of the features of our synagogue that was new in 1897 was electricity. None of our previous synagogues had electric lighting or any electricity at all. And this was the first one, 1897. And it came in a couple different ways. One of the more famous things that we talk about on tours is these skeptic lamps, because the top part was wired for electricity. The bottom part, we see here today, is electrified, but originally was gas. And so, electricity was not as consistent as it is today, and they didn't know for sure if it was going to last. So they had both gas and electric lighting in the congregation. There used to be more of these. Eventually, they uh, wired them for electricity and continually added more and more lights, including spotlights in the ceiling, so that you get what you have today. Um, but I'm not actually going to talk about electric lighting. I'm going to talk about electricity. So the main mover and shaker responsible for the creation of our synagogue was a man named L. Napoleon Levy, Louis Napoleon Levy. And he was the Parnasse of our congregation. He was also a descendant of the Phillips family, and the Levy family was from an old synagogue family going back to colonial period. Uh, and uh, and he was a clerk. I forgot his exact job, but he worked, I think, in the Department of Buildings or some kind of. He had an official role in the city of New York, and so he was very involved with construction and contracts. And he was a lawyer, and he really a lot of the aspects of our congregation today have including the building and its design, including some of the uh, legal issues and protections that we have are due to his care and concern and attention to detail. And that's him here. This is L. Napoleon Levy. Totally aside, have nothing to do with the topic I'm talking about today. L. Napoleon Levy had a brother. His name was Jefferson Monroe, Jefferson Monroe Levy, who was the owner of Monticello in Virginia for a while. Um, but okay, we'll leave that for another day. Um, so all of the contracts with all of the contractors and the architects, including Arnold Brunner and the Tiffany and Company, for the building of our synagogue were overseen by L. Napoleon Levy. And if you look in the archives, there are all the specifications for every contractor when they were bidding out the jobs are in the archives. And one of the pages that I came across is this. page which is contained in the electrical specifications for bell work. Bell work. And it's some, details that I don't really know much about. Conductors to be KK. I have no idea what that means. Maybe the next engineer can tell me. Waterproof wire, not smaller than a certain number gauge. Okay. Batteries to be located where directed by architects consists of 12 batteries, 6 on, 6 can be replaced. Okay. And then it gives you the individual locations that he wants these bells to be. A push to be located at 70th Street entrance, a push to be located at the minister's entrance, a push to be located at the basement entrance, a push to be located at the reading desk, a push to be located at the minister's study, trustee's room, the seat door near the vestibule, and 2 seats on the platform near the ark. Bells to be iron box vibrating and of 2 tones. So what is this? It's not a mystery. If you these are um, doorbells or push bells, electrical call boxes, which were an innovation that had just been invented maybe 10 years earlier. Um, I think the first electrical call box is something like 1885, 1886. So it's not been around a long time. Um, and in our new synagogue, they installed quite a few of them, not only at the doors, which you can see at 70th Street, Minister's Entrance, but also in the interior. And you can think of the interior ones not as doorbells as much as servants' bells. So if you think back to the Victorian era, um, if you wanted to call uh, the staff to clear the breakfast from the breakfast room, there's a in the old days there was a pull bell system. You would pull something, it would ring a bell in the servants' quarters, and someone would come up and do the work that needs to be done. And so that's the way homes were outfitted. And then when the electricity came in, electrical service bells were installed, and so too in the synagogue as part of the specifications. Um, and not only do we have in the archives this paper with the specifications, we also have the confirmation that the work was done by the chosen contractor, which was a company named Alexander Chamberlain Electric Company. I've tried to look up anything about them. The only thing I could find out is that Alexander Chamberlain, the person who founded this company, was the inventor of the electric dimmer. Other than that, I know nothing about the company or the person. But they were the contractor who installed all the electrical work in the synagogue. And this is a letter that was written after the bells were installed. Complete list of the electrical bell work now installed in the synagogue. Um, and you can see here that there's a push button from the trustees room to 70th Street hall and basement, push button from the Teba to the Thomas seat, push button from the pulpit to the Thomas seat, push button from the president's seat to the Thomas seat. I don't know who Thomas was, but he's got a lot of buttons. So my first thought was, we have a building manager, John, who sits at the front door. When I was growing up, it was Renee. When my mother was growing up, it was Sydney. Maybe Thomas was the building manager in 1897. But uh, but no, that would be a mistake. Thomas is really just uh, a typo from someone who does not know what the actual word was meant to be, which is shamash. The shamas's seat, not Thomas's seat, but the shamas's seat. Guess who the shamash is? It's me. I have a lot of buttons. A lot of people can call me. Had this system still been around, and I guess my predecessor must have been uh, on the always ready to go. Um, so I walked around the synagogue trying to find these bells and buzzers and buttons, some of which are still visible, most of which are not. As you can see, there were a lot of them. Um, in fact, the ones that are still visible are on the outside. The front doorbell, if you ever come to the synagogue, there is a bell that is the original doorbell, and the one on the parsonage, also the original doorbell. Not surprising that those would still be there because they were used for a really long time. Today we don't use those, but they were used until very recently to ring the doorbell. But some of the ones in the interior are more interesting. So if you go up to the Teba, this is a thing I don't usually show on tours, so consider yourselves lucky. Now it's being recorded for posterity, so there we go. Um, these are buttons that are located right next to where the rabbi sits. Rabbi sits over here, presumably in the original synagogue. That's where Henry Pereira Mendes sat as well. And he has three buttons. They are labeled Shamus, Choir G, and Gallery. Uh, although I know what these refer to, I have no idea where they actually went to. But presumably there was a button that the rabbi could press to signal these people, the shamash, the choir, and for some reason the gallery. I don't know where the gallery went to. I don't know if it means the ladies' gallery and who would be receiving that buzz, that signal. Um, but that's for the rabbi to press. You're going to tell me, oh, well, how can you do that? How could the rabbi do that on Shabbat? Uh, that's really what I wanted to talk about, but that is a much harder question to discuss in a class. Uh, suffice it to say that in 1897, the status of electricity use on Shabbat was very much in flux. And at least initially, the synagogue was wired to have buttons that could be pushed on Shabbat. Wouldn't make sense to only use it on weekdays. The main time they're using the sanctuary is on Shabbat. So it must have been for use on Shabbat. Now, what would they do? There's no record. I scoured records of the archives to try to figure out who was pushing this button and why, but I found no remnant of it, if there ever was any written record, other than the specifications that it was put in when they made the building. But this is not the only one that's still around. If you go to the front where the vice president's seat is, you will see some more buttons. This is on the eastern wall, right behind the banco for the vice president. There was apparently one like it on the other side, which is no longer there. And there are two buttons, Shamash, Shamas, and Hall. I don't know where the Hall goes to. I don't know what the Hall refers to, but I know who the Shamas is. And I also know where the Shamash sits or sat, which is where I sit today in the very first seat near the Hall. And if we go back to the completed uh, list that the electric company reports on, you'll see that there is a push button from the Teba to the Thomas seat. Thomas is now we know is the Shamash. And the pulpit, I looked at the pulpit, I couldn't find any buttons, but apparently there once was, to the Thomas seat. That's the Shamash. And from the president to the Shamash's seat. So the Shamash's seat had a signal. And if you come to where I sit today, I believe there is a remnant of it because there are two filled-in holes and some what looks to be places where something was screwed in. And I believe, I have no way of proving it, I have no pictures of it, that this was where the signal was. The rabbi pushes the button, the parnas pushes the button, and something over here buzzes, rings, or lights up. Uh, I know from the specifications that it was meant to be a bell, an iron box vibrating with two tones. So I don't think it lit up. I think it was actually a noise-making thing, vibrating, buzzer zzz, with two different tones. I don't know why that needs two different tones. I don't know what that possibly could sound like or how disturbing. It must have been low. They wouldn't want to disturb the people in the synagogue. Um, and I don't know why the Parnas or the president, the rabbi couldn't just look over to the Shamash, which is what happens today. Um, but they had this signaling system. Um, and the other place that it went to that I do know of, that I believe I know of, is in the choir loft. Now, the choir loft today is behind the ark where the Ten Commandments are, and that's not where the choir was in 1897. The choir in 1897 was on the third floor. And if you come to the synagogue, I should have put a picture in it. I'm sorry. There is a gallery way up above. Whenever I give tours, people say, "What's up there?" It's covered by curtains, but that's where the original choir loft was. Now it's storage. If you go up there, there is what looks like an electrical box on the wall, and if you look into it, there are like two. This is more modern for sure, not original to 1897. This box, but there are some old electrical outfittings inside there, which I presume were connected at one time to a buzzer, which would signal the choir to sing now, something like that. Time to sing. Um, I guess, especially if it's a little bit hard to hear, if you're all the way up on the third floor behind the Chazan, you might not actually hear the cue. So someone could signal the choir to proceed. Now, the interesting thing is, I had heard some years ago that there were similar buttons in Lauderdale Road in London. So I wrote to my contacts there, and indeed, there is a button at the President's Banca. They have a enclosed banca for the president, and not like we just have a sofa. They have like an enclosed space. And in that enclosed space, as you can see here, is a button. And that button at one point in time went to the Shamash's seat. I don't know if it went anywhere else, it's just one button, and would call him up to the front for the distribution of the mitzvot. And apparently it was stopped and the wires cut in the 1950s, and with that, they also have a remnant of it. Now, this is quite interesting to me. The synagogues are being outfitted with these call buttons. The Lauderdale Road Synagogue is about the same age as ours. I think it's a year younger or a year older. I forget if it's 1898 or 1896, but it's almost exactly the same age as ours. So this is not just Shearith Israel. I don't think it's a Spanish Portuguese thing, uh, but I have yet to find it in any other synagogue. Um, but I did find, we'll just go back to something more interesting to look at. Um, I did find when I was looking on the internet two things, which I don't have images for you, but they were newspaper articles. The first was an article from a like a modern church. I forgot the name of the periodical, but like for the a church publication, uh, which has an article about church architecture and literally about what the ideal church architecture should be, and it's published 1893, just 5 years before or 4 years before our synagogue was built. And among all the model things that it says that the church should have is a electrical call button from the pulpit to the sexton to alert the sexton if it's too hot or too cold or if they need to do something. And that's written there. So this was not only a Jewish innovation, but it would have been an innovation in the Christian world anywhere. They didn't have electrical call boxes before about 1885, so this is all pretty new. And that's listed as the model for the church, for a button from the pulpit to the sexton. And then I did find a description of a brand new synagogue that was built in 1894 in Utah, Salt Lake City or not or Reno, I think I forget exactly, which makes one little mention that there was a button from the pulpit to the sexton, uh, but didn't explain why or how it would be used. So I know that other synagogues and churches have these buttons, but I have never seen them. If you have seen them, that would be a nice find, and I would like, and maybe there'll be a follow-up class. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is something else that's sort of kind of related. In 1896 and 1897, when they were building our current synagogue building, there was a committee that was pretty active in the design and contracting. L. Napoleon Levy was on that committee as well as other people, and it has some reports. And I've seen some of the reports, though I haven't seen the one that I'm quoting you here, which is why I give you this secondary quote of it. This is what you're looking at. This is from Dr. Poole in 1936, wrote a little booklet about our synagogue building. 1937, it was the 50th anniversary, 40th anniversary, or something like that. And he writes about some of the things that didn't get done, some of the add-ons, the alternates. Some of the things are interesting. One of them was that they had planned for but didn't do because they didn't have enough money for was the teba. Now you say, well, we have a teba. It's a beautiful teba. Our teba is made out of wood. It's gorgeous. The original plan had an alternate add-on. I guess if it could have been done in the budget of the synagogue, for the teba to be made out of marble. And there are actually two. One, there's a design for green marble and a design for a white marble, neither of which are done. They would have cost an extra $10,000, which in 1897 is not a small amount, and were never done. The other thing, though, that they did have, which is right here, another thought in the mind of those who created the synagogue, but one which was yet to be carried out, was that of an elevator. 50 years ago, the Committee on Planning, this is 1897, when they were planning the new building, were under the impression, and this is the quote from the committee, a building costing $125,000, that was the original budget, it actually went for more than that, would permit us electrical elevators which are said to be not forbidden to be used on the Sabbath. And the reason I'm showing this to you, which you might suspect, is here is the only reference I saw to the synagogue thinking about a design using electricity that was said to be permitted for Shabbat use. So I know that they were thinking about it. They didn't just install those buttons willy-nilly thinking, oh, whatever. Oh, we can't use it on Shabbat. Oh, well. They must have initially thought about the issue and thought it was permitted to be used on Shabbat. And at some later date, as electricity became more popular and the rabbinic position on its use on Shabbat shifted uh, to the negative zone, they must have abandoned their use. Hence, there are very few remnants of them in the synagogue. But if you know where to look, and now you do, you can find a remnant of the electrical call buttons in the synagogue for calling the shamash. That's the whole thing for you today. Uh, let's take a look at the comments. Uriah Phillips Levy was the father, I believe, uncle of Jefferson Monroe and L. Napoleon Levy. I don't think Uriah Phillips Levy had children. I could be wrong, but I think that was their uncle. So it is the same family. Roger, you were raising your hand?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. I'm surprised that there was a bell with a sound because this would have disturbed the service or the ongoing activity. In our building, which is not much old, which is not much younger, what we had in our apartment were numbers that would flip depending upon which particular bell was rang. So you could tell not only that someone had rang, but you could
But where
actually
to
tell
go?
where to go or who to respond to. And I suspect that may have been either originally or eventually preferred to the sound, but I don't know. One may have access to the catalog of the installer of the electrician company and see what they were offering as bells to
So in
see.
the only thing that I can tell you, and I showed you earlier, is there in the specification. It
Yeah,
says
yeah, I understand.
two-tone,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I also have always I've known about these buttons almost my whole life, but
Mm,
I always assumed it was a light that would have lit up silently, Oh, go. But the specifications call for a vibrating box with two tones. So I am surprised by that as well. Must have been just very low. Otherwise, how could they possibly have done it?
yeah,
Yeah, Solomon, I see you raising your hand.
Yes, thank you, number one, for giving this wonderful talk. You omitted to show the buttons on the tipa itself.
No, I didn't. I'll
The
go
ones
back
for
and
the two going to the choir.
no, I'll show it again. I did show them.
I was told by Dr. Gerstein when I came to the synagogue many years ago, that when you push it once, it was meant for Amen, and when you push it two, it's Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
Um, I don't know if that's possibly true. Rabbi Angel told me that he had never heard anything about their use. So I did try to find out a bit more about anyone who might have known if they were ever in use, but don't know.
Baruch Ato, I don't know.
Pretty cool. But here they are, right here. Um, Now I saw some other comments. So yeah, so Alex, so that in addition to electricity, there is in itself a Shabbat prohibition of using musical instruments, making music on Shabbat, and that probably extends to door knockers and bells, at least according to the Ramah, according to Moshe Isserles. So that's going way back into the early modern period, where there is a good stream that says you cannot use these pulleys and bells on Shabbat. But not they're not the only. It's not the only opinion. There are some who say you can, that those are not klei zemer, but it is a complicated issue, completely irrespective of electricity, making noise on Shabbat. So, and that there is not that doesn't seem to have any remnant of,
But we have
which is,
records of an inauguration of our synagogue in Amsterdam, dating back to 1675, when that was opened on Shabbat Nachamu, that they built this thing in the entrance of the synagogue on which they had an orchestra. Also it was a harp and a flutist, and I don't remember the third one. There were three, and they accompanied these special pieces which Chacham Aboab composed. And we know that in those days, and everybody wondered how was that allowed. That we didn't do it anymore in my days, and nor did people who were there before the war remember it
so I mean,
ever.
this is a famous question having nothing to do with electricity. Um, and I don't know how it played out in Amsterdam specifically, but there were synagogues which used Gentile musicians on to accompany music on Shabbat, or at least on Friday night. Very famously, Prague, I think, had an organ that had a Gentile keyboardist, organist that would accompany the service on Friday night. Uh,
Budapest.
Budapest, okay, and it could be something similar for the inauguration. I didn't know that it was on Shabbat. Like in our synagogue, it was not a Shabbat that they
Oh, sheesh, oh,
inaugurated
wow.
the
Okay.
synagogue. So uh, don't know. Okay, everybody, that is our class for today. A shorty. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, if I ever learn more, I'll have an update for you. Take care.